right, you guys, welcome to Taking Flight with me. My name is Mike Rocket Blackstone. Thanks for tuning back in. I am going to share with you today the amazing world of flying a biplane and owning a biplane business. Just to kind of take you back a little bit, I can kind of share with you what my background is and why I have this love for biplanes. And really, this is how my entire aviation career got going. So I'll take you all the way back to when I was just a young boy. My dad started a business called Blackstone Aerobatics with a Pitts S2A. And it was an open cockpit biplane. And it was designed basically for really great aerobatics. But my dad thought that it would be fun to share aerobatics with people and take them up in his biplane. And also it was a way for him to pay for the airplane and to justify owning an airplane because they're kind of expensive. So that is how I was introduced to aviation as an 8-year-old, was hanging out with my dad and flying in his open cockpit Pitts S2A. So long story short is I love biplanes, and hanging out at the airport with my dad and flying the open cockpit fabric airplane and doing loops and rolls with the leather helmet on and goggles and all of that was really, really special and magical for me. So then fast forward literally to when I was 25 years old and I had just gotten to the airlines. The first thing I did was buy a biplane and start doing aerobatics in a Pitts S2C and repeat the process, just exactly what my dad had done with me. I was sharing with others, doing loops and rolls and getting people interested in aviation and going 200 miles an hour and really experiencing the magic of flying. A few years later, I decided to take it into a different realm of a little bit more of the romantic and to the golden age of aviation, which was the 1930s. And I found this amazing aircraft called a Waco. And the Waco YMF-5 series, which is a factory-built airplane from the design of a 1935 aircraft, is built in Battle Creek, Michigan. And I started searching the country for a biplane so that I could do these romantic, aerobatic, 2-passenger, scenic, sunset flights, and really capture the essence of what aviation was all about. Now, before I did all of this, I read this amazing book called Biplane by Richard Bach. And if you haven't seen it or heard of it, I'll put a link down below for what it is. But basically, it's the story of a guy who buys a biplane, a 1930s biplane like I bought with the Waco, and he trades in his modern airplane for this old airplane. And this is the story of him doing the exchange and then flying the open cockpit biplane back to his home. I believe it was in Southern California as well. So it was kind of an interesting story, but it really gets you into the world of the biplane, into the magic of owning a wood and fabric airplane and doing what it takes to fly these things. So I was trying to show you, when there's a model of a biplane. This isn't a Waco, but this thing kind of really captures the essence of what a biplane is. And you got the little pilot back here, his head sticking up in the wind. This one doesn't even have a windshield on it. The Waco is much more nice than this, but it kind of catches the essence of what it's about. When you fly a biplane, you're literally sitting outside and you feel more of the process of what flying is, with the wind being generated by the propeller pushing the airplane through the air. You could feel the wind swishing past the wings. You could hear the wind in the wires of the flying wires that are being blasted with air at high speed. It almost sounds like you're on a sailboat moving at 100 knots. The sound of the radial engine purring in the front of you, almost like riding a Harley in the sky. As you carve through the sky and you're maneuvering around puffy clouds and swooping down and checking out whales and dolphin pods and flying along the coast and just enjoying the process of flying and being outside is what the magic of flying a biplane open cockpit is all about. So I buy this biplane, and this thing is a 1996, and it is now 2006. The plane's about 10 years old, and I find the perfect biplane. And it's yellow, and it's navy blue trim and a little bit of red. It's got this very classic open cockpit biplane paint job that you would just expect a biplane to look like. So it was perfect. And I went and retrieved this thing and flew it across the country, and you'll find the process of flying this airplane is just epic. And once you get it back into your hometown and then you decide, hey, I'm going to take some people for rides in it. They're going to wear the leather helmets. They're going to have the goggles. They could ride two in the front, and we'll fly it low around all of the scenic sites around your local area. And we made a biplane business out of this. So 17 years later, now here we are, 2023. I love this airplane, and I've always loved biplanes. It is now time for me to move into another area in my life, and I'd like to pass along this magical airplane to the next owner so that they can enjoy what it does. And before I did any of that, before I even listed it for sale, I've upgraded the motor on this thing and put a freshly overhauled engine from Air Repair. A guy named Pete Jones in Mississippi did the repair. Hi, Pete, if you're watching this. An incredible overhaul on the engine. It is an R755 engine. It's a 7-cylinder radial. It makes 275 horsepower. It's normally aspirated. It's not fuel injected. It is just the way Pete Jones would say. It's a perfect engine, and it has a 1,400-hour TBO on it now. The older ones had 1,200-hour TBO, which is why I overhauled it at 1,200. The airplane currently has 1,250 hours on it. It's in beautiful condition, and it is ready to go. Firewall forward is all overhauled. So I did it right. You know, when you overhaul an engine, you could say, well, the starter's still got some few more starts left in it. I'm going to overhaul that later, and I didn't do that. So we overhauled the starter. We overhauled the alternator. We sent out the exhaust for full overhaul and pressure check and to refresh the exhaust on it. It's got a new mag and a new distributor. So this thing is literally firewall forward, including the propeller, a 2B20 constant speed prop, which allows it to maintain RPM as you dive and climb. And most biplanes you'll find are fixed pitch. Even the new Wacos are $550,000 Wacos, come with a fixed pitch propeller, which isn't really wood, it's more of a carbon fiber. They do have an option for a constant speed prop, but it is it's not a 2B20 Hamilton standard propeller, Hartzell propeller. It is a MT prop, so it looks like wood, but it's actually carbon fiber. That's the way the new ones are. But I love this one. This is a metal propeller. This is what you'd find on a Cessna 195, and it allows you to set the RPM and cruise. So we take off at 2,200 RPM. We get up to cruise altitude of 1,000 feet or whatever it is, 2,500. Pull the propeller back to 1950, set the mixture back a touch, and fly it at 21 inches of manifold pressure and be doing like 90 miles an hour in this thing and just cruising and enjoying. So this is the Waco. I'm going to share with you some photos of it now, and let's take a look at the airplane and see what we got. So first, this is out of Chino and sunset flight. Kind of can see the paint scheme there. It's in excellent condition. From here, you can see the landing lights in the wings. That's a really nice mod. These are the original ones. These are not LED, but they're It's ready to switch over to LED. I believe they're just plug and play. If you ever choose to do LED, it's no problem. But I've been using the halogen ones. They're bright and they're great. There's a taxi light and a landing light on different switches in the wings. The propeller, you can see that's the 2B20. It's freshly overhauled, beautiful. We painted it. It used to be polished, and we painted it to protect it. Polished isn't really very good for the propeller, so we decided to paint it and to preserve it and protect it, give it that really cool military gray propeller, which looks great, and the aluminum hub looks fantastic. So here's another shot of it, just a little different, lower angle there. Closer up. As you get in close, you can start to see the overhaul inside the cowling. This engine is like a work of art. When you look inside, when they kick the cowling off of this thing, you'll see some beautiful, beautiful detail work that Pete Jones puts into this thing. It's got leather over the intake manifolds on the top, and it's just amazing. So when you see it, you'll be like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. That front scoop there that's where the filter goes. It has a bracket filter that goes in there, and all the parts to maintain this thing are available. That's one of the wonderful things about owning a Waco versus any other biplane. So if you're going to start a biplane business, this is the right airplane for a biplane business for many reasons. And I researched a bunch of biplanes, and I looked at a Travel Air. I looked way back into the older ones. I looked into the 40s for Wacos. Just to kind of see, hey, what? How about a Stearman? Is that a good plane for rides? So you kind of look through and you see what's available and you see what's out there. In my mind, what I want is a biplane that is reliable, safe, beautiful, and I don't believe that there's a biplane out there that is more beautiful than a Waco YMF. This 1935 shape with the pure symmetry and the beauty of the wings and the way everything lines up, and the big tail section with the big rounded giant vertical stabilizer and the giant rudder and the giant elevators. It just looks right. So all of the proportions are fantastic. So from a look standpoint, the Waco is second to none. Performance, also second to none. 275 horsepower Jacobs is the right engine for this airplane. Would it be nice to have a 450 Pratt & Whitney on this thing, like a beast of a Stearman with a huge engine? Maybe, but it doesn't really change the experience. It would just make it louder. It would go a little bit faster. Maybe just a touch more boost for like vertical, like doing a loop. But cruising, the Jacobs 755 is just the right engine for this airplane. It sounds right, it looks right, and it's adequate to lift 340 pounds in the front seat, me in the back. And I would typically fly with 10 or 15 gallons in each wing, so 30 gallons of gas, 2 hours of fuel on board. This airplane actually is configured with 74 gallons. So we've got 49 in the mains, and we've got 25 in the outboards. This plane has extended range tanks. Some of the Wacos don't, and they only have 48 gallons in the inboards. This one has two 12.5 gallons outboard, which really improve its cross-country capability. So I highly recommend that you get the one with more range so that you can go farther with it. If you're actually going to travel with this airplane, you would have a much more fun experience being able to go out a little bit farther. So with the 74 gallon configuration burning about 14 or 15 gallons an hour, you've got about 400 nautical mile range. It'll go farther. It actually has enough fuel on board to push all the way out to 5 hours and really 12 minutes to fuel exhaustion. So you could fly it for about 4 hours. I tend to fly about 3.5 and land with an hour of fuel on board. And that's just up to you. But I feel that that's a very safe and adequate way. If you didn't have the outboard tanks, you wouldn't be able to do that. So I love the cross-country capability of this airplane. I've flown it thousands of miles. And to different places. It makes a really, really fun cross-country machine. The cargo compartment in the back on the left side can carry 2 rollerboards stacked on top of each other. And I believe it's 75 pounds in the back. You cannot do aerobatics with any cargo in the cargo hold, but for cross-country and for taking trips, it's a perfect machine. Up front, you've got a bench seat. I've looked at other airplanes, older airplanes, and the bench seat is the standard. That's what you do. So 2 people can sit side by side in the front, and it's got 2 jacks up front for 2 headsets, which is great. When you do aerobatics, you have to put parachutes on. So you take the seat back out, and that comes out pretty easy. So just slip out the back seat cushion from the front seat to make room for the backpack parachutes. And then 2 people can sit up front with parachutes. Pilot sits in the back with his or her parachute. And now the 3 of you can go out and do loops and rolls and gentle, spins and wing overs and things like that. Totally legal, makes for a great ride experience for those who want to take their scenic ride operation up a notch to an aerobatic ride, which is fantastic. And we did that. I did that for many, many years. So from a ride standpoint, I don't believe that there's any better airplane than a Waco. It's efficient, about 14 gallons an hour. I was charging at the time and continued to charge $495, $500 plus another upcharge for video if they choose to do so, and I could do another $100 for the video. We're talking about 45-minute flights, doing over $600 an hour for this Waco. So could you do it cheaper? Could you get an airplane like a Stearman and be in less money and have a less expensive asset and be charging something similar? I don't know. I don't believe that the Stearman can command the higher price that a Waco can. It's just not as nice of an airplane to look at. It's not as nice of an airplane to perform. The Waco has 4 ailerons, so it allows it to do better roll rate. It's not ridiculous roll rate. It's not a Pitts, but it does have a better roll rate due to the 4 ailerons. And I've got the constant speed propeller, so when I'm diving, we cannot overspeed the prop in the dive. So diving down, the entry speed on a loop, for example, will be like 140, 150 miles per hour. Pulling it gently, 2.5 G's pull to get it into a really nice loop. The roll in the Waco looks something like this. So in the dive, you go down to about 120, 130 miles per hour. You bring that nose way high, start throwing that stick over to the right in this case with right rudder, and you can get a really nice roll out of it and finish just slightly nose low like that. So you can get some really beautiful aerobatics in the Waco, slow and majestic, 120, 140 miles per hour. You get a really nice loop out of it. I've done many kind of wing overs. Kind of the hammerhead look a little bit more like a wing over like this. And then the spin, it does a beautiful spin. So it's an incredible airplane with just really, really gentle aerobatic capability. All of the fuel is in the top wing. And in these older airplanes, it's gravity feed to the engine. So there is no boost pump. It doesn't need one. It literally makes a couple of pounds of pressure just from the weight of the fuel running down the looks like about a 3/8 inch, maybe almost a 1/2 inch hard line to the carburetor. So the engine is powered by both of these feeding into separate manifolds, and then they join somewhere in the center. You can burn the left side to only burn the left wing by closing the right side, or you can close the left side and burn only from the right, and you could balance the fuel that way. Didn't get that. And I recommend doing that. So as you're flying along, at some point, especially if you're going to go cross country with this thing, you're going to want to close one of the fuel selectors to actually burn only one side. And then visually, the fuel gauges are sight gauges that hang down below the wings. So you can see the float coming down, and you would burn the right side only until it gets down to maybe a 1/2 inch from the bottom. And then you would engage the other side by closing the one that you were saving. So now we close the right and burn the left and burn it down. And that's how you can gauge how much fuel you're having. I really don't want to get to a landing spot where both of them are really low. So I would, as I get down into that last hour of flight, I would burn one side down, And then as I get close to the airport, engage them both and land with one of the tanks fuller than the other. So we know that we have more fuel on one side than the other. That's just my own personal technique. Couple of other great features about the Waco. Amazing landings and steerable tail wheel. This plane has awesome landing gear. I've flown it off of unimproved strips, dirt strip, grass, and it does amazing even on concrete. When you read the book Biplane, it'll talk about the enemy of the biplane is the wind and concrete runways. I never had a problem with this airplane. It's been on the runway every single time. Knock on wood, we've never blown a tire, never been stuck with it. So it's never got stranded with the Waco. It's really an amazing airplane. So I think what you'll find is the best possible procedure with it is to always take off with the tail wheel engaged. So the stick comes back. When you start the engine, you pull the lever back on the left side to engage the tail wheel. Check and make sure you've got it. So as you steer the airplane, the tail wheel steers beautifully. It's got incredible tail wheel steering. You'll steer it out gently onto the taxiway, of course, doing S-turns so you can see really well. Nice and slow on the taxi, get out onto the runway and get everything lined up. And as you add power, smooth and slow. You don't jam the throttle on this thing, just smooth and slow, run the throttle all the way up. It starts to roll, you start to accelerate, start getting some rudder authority, elevator authority, gently push forward on the stick until you raise the tail up. As you raise the tail, a little blip of right rudder, accelerate, and leave the tail slightly low. I don't really bring the tail all the way flat, so leave the tail slightly low so that when she's ready, it'll just fly off. And as it gets airborne, relax the back pressure, let it accelerate, and then climb out at about 80 miles per hour, right? Nice gentle climb, and head to your destination. So that's the proper way to take it off. And as far as landing goes, when you come in to land this thing, I would come in at about 80 to 90 miles per hour, or 90 miles per hour. Yeah, it shows it in miles per hour on the Waco. Come in about 90-ish, and as you get over the runway, you'll just gently round out, holding it off and landing in a slightly tail low attitude like this. Throttle idle, touch on the mains and roll forward. I call this a tail low wheel landing. So you'll touch on the mains, roll forward, and put your stick correction into the wind, of course, holding it on the ground. And when the tail starts to sag, that means it's ready to fly down now. When the tail starts to sag a little bit more, you'll gently ease the stick back, touching the tail wheel onto the runway. Now you can take over with your tail wheel steering. Make sure that the tail wheel is in fact engaged during the rollout. There's nothing less fun than taking off or landing inadvertently with the tail wheel disengaged, so you have a free castering tail wheel back there. That's asking for trouble. So if you have tail wheel capability, engage it. If for some reason this thing were to fail, if it never did, you would need to steer it with rudder initially, and then you'd need to steer it with brakes. So as long as that tail wheel is engaged and it's working, you won't need to do that. And I've never had to do that. It actually is an awesome landing airplane and taking off airplane. Track straight, beautiful. It's a super wonderful tail dragger biplane to fly, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy flying this thing. All right, so a couple of other numbers. It weighs in at 2,650 pounds max gross weight. Its empty weight is around 1,150. The useful load on the airplane, it's approximately 965 pounds. I tended to fly it with no more than about 340, 350 pounds in the front seat. It could carry more, but size-wise is the limit. So you can typically have, like maybe 100 and I call it 200-pound man up front with a 120-pound woman. So that's like 320. That would work out perfect, even with parachutes. Pilot in the back, parachute. The way you handle the parachutes is you got to take the seat backs out of the seat so you can make room for the backpacks. And that would be an amazing ride operation. I've been successful with this. This plane is a winner. So if you're thinking about a biplane business and you're wondering how it's going to work, I can be happy to tell you how to fly it, how to maintain it, how to be legal, and how to run a really great biplane ride business. This is a 1996 Waco. It is 27 years old. It's got 1,250 hours on it with a 50-hour fresh everything firewall forward. This is a winning airplane. It will do well for you for many, many years. I flew it for 700 hours in the $500 per 45-minute mission, which is about $600 an hour. It certainly is time for a price increase, so we can certainly go higher than that now, and I would suggest doing that. Or if you want to fly it more, you can keep the price a little bit lower and you'll have a higher volume. So whether you're an airline pilot, you're a commercial pilot looking to build more time, or you're just a guy or a gal who's looking to own an awesome, awesome airplane for the purpose of just flying around and enjoying an airplane, I highly recommend the Waco. I love the business side of it too. So, when you're thinking, oh man, I just want to have a experimental biplane. Could you find an experimental biplane for less money and just have a cool plane to fly around? Yes, you could. But from my perspective, it always makes more sense to have a plane, make it into a business, be legal, get your commercial insurance, fly it safely, fly it responsibly, and encourage people to fly airplanes while you're enjoying your biplane. It's also generating revenue to help cover the costs of this thing. I mean, it's not a cheap airplane. It needs to cover its hangar, its annual. It needs to cover its insurance and give you something for your time and for your investment in this airplane. And over time, you'll notice this thing is making money. It's covering its cost. It's making you some additional money so you can enjoy flying it on days that you're not flying rides. You can take it on great trips. It's got tie downs. It's got a cover. I actually have a cover for the front cockpit so you could fly it solo, and the windshield on the front folds up and you could carry that in the cargo compartment. So it's able to fly a higher speed, single seat. Of course, I always flew it with somebody in the front with me because I like sharing the airplane with people. So you can fly it both ways, single seat or with someone in the front, and teach people. You could actually do lessons in this thing. You can teach people how to fly, and it's got brakes up front and everything. Stick controls. The stick comes out really easy, so you can configure it for 1 or 2 passengers in the front. If you put one person up front, now you could teach them to fly it. They can get an aerobatic lesson. They can get a tail wheel lesson. They can get a flying lesson in how to fly a Waco giant biplane. It's a really, really great experience. It's a fun way to share aviation with people. So I recommend the business side of it. You don't have to do that. You could certainly buy it and use it for personal use. And at some point, one day you'll want to share it with other people, and hopefully you'll want to do the biplane business as well and share aviation with people. I'm hoping this is going to be an interesting video for you so that you can get excited about it. If you have any questions at all, please put them in the comment section below. This really turned into a little bit of a sales presentation for the Waco. I'm going to go through a few more of the pics with you here so you can see a few more of the shots of it. And I've got a video of it starting so you can hear what it sounds like. So let's get to that. So here's another couple shots of the thing here. It's just, as you look at it, it's just epic. I love the shape of it, those giant tires. It's capable of again, off-airport landings. I've landed it in a dirt strip before. It did great. Those big chunky tires, it's got soft landing gear. So it actually has like oleo struts, like real suspension. Unlike my Pitts and unlike my Pitts and unlike my Citabria, which had like really bungy, springy, boingy kind of landing gear in the Pitts, and the Citabria had actually like a spring steel gear, which really made it tricky to get good landings out of it. The Waco does better. These big fat tires on it and the squishy landing gear, you can really get a nice soft touchdown. My best landings in biplanes were in the Waco for sure. And look at this Art Deco design. Like literally looking at the shape of the cowling. These are handmade. The Waco is a work of art. It actually is made in a factory in Michigan, Battle Creek, by a company called Centennial Aircraft. Peter Bowers used to own it. It's changed hands since then, but the group that's there, all the same people are still working there, and they still build this airplane and maintain the fleet, as well as provide parts and support. So when you're talking about an airplane business, there's nothing more comforting than having parts capability. Have I needed many parts for this airplane? The answer is no. But when I do need a part, if I did need a part, I can call up my folks, the friends over at Centennial, and say, hey, I need this, can you send me that? And they can either FedEx it to you if it's really critical, or ship it to you 3 days select and get that thing in a few days. But having parts available is critical. So that's the reason why I didn't go with a 1929 Travel Air. I didn't want to be making parts. So when the thing needed parts, and some of these old Travel Airs, they're beautiful, they're cool. But if they need anything at all, you're gonna have to find a company or a manufacturer that can create these parts. If you break a wheel, they're gonna have to make one. That kind of thing was just a showstopper for me. So I love having parts available. I've only needed a couple parts over the years. Almost everything you need for this airplane is available from Aircraft Spruce. You can buy the brakes on Aircraft Spruce. You get the oil, the filters. By the way, on oil filters, this airplane we've configured with a Wolf spin-on oil filter kit, and a ADC chip detector and oil filter as well. So it's basically got two ways to filter oil and to alert me of any pending engine malfunction. I did not ever have an engine malfunction while I flew this airplane. It was bulletproof, literally. It was like, oh, radial, it's gonna be troublesome. It's gonna be not good. It's bulletproof. You just pull the propeller through, 7 compression strokes every time you fly it. Make sure that you clear any little remnants of oil out of the lower 2 cylinders primarily, because it's a radial. That could happen, and it does on occasion if you let the plane sit. You need to make sure you clear the compression stroke on this airplane all the way through every time you fly it. If you do that, you're not going to have any problems with this radial. Fly it often, have a great time with it. You can put the battery on trickle charger. That may be something you'd want to do. It has 2 12-volt batteries in series. It's a 24-volt system. You can trickle charge them, keep this thing topped up. The starters is incredible. This plane has never left me stranded. So ultimately, it's just as reliable as any modern airplane, and fully capable IFR. So I'm going to get you to the cockpit in here in a minute. I get excited about the airplane. Get you to the cockpit. It's got a Garmin 430. It's got an attitude indicator. It's got a heading DG. It's got a dual nav setup, so you can navigate with this airplane. You can shoot an ILS with it. It's got lights in the cockpit, so you could fly it at night. How many biplanes can fly at night? It's got lights, nav lights, strobe lights on the wingtips, and it's also got landing lights and taxi lights for night landings. An amazing airplane. So before you get into any other airplanes that don't have lights and that don't have starters, that don't have electrical systems, save yourself the agony. Get a Waco, have a great time with it. Buy mine. This plane is a winner. I'm not selling it because it hasn't been a winner for me. It is a winner. It does have a little bit of history, as all biplanes do. You read the book Biplane and you kind of understand what I'm talking about. But biplanes and tail draggers in general, there's those that have, and there's those that may someday will have had an incident, have been off the runway, had some sort of situation, unless they're brand new and the owner never flew it. I never had an issue with this plane, but this airplane did have an issue before me. Early on in its life, I believe it was like 35 hours. So imagine this guy buys this brand new biplane, doesn't know how to fly it very well yet, and takes it into a situation where it looks to me, I don't know really what happened, but it ended up with some wing repair. Stay off the brakes. Like literally, when you land this airplane, it doesn't need to use the brakes unless you're putting it in and out of a 1,500-foot strip, which you should not. I flew it for years off of a 3,000-foot strip. You could easily touch down on or near the numbers or by the first turnoff and roll out and turn off midfield or 3/4 of the way down without touching the brakes at all. If you touch down on any biplane, if you touch down on the mains and the sticks back, and then or stick forward even, if you touch down on the mains and then immediately get on the brakes and maybe go forward stick, you could pitch the airplane over onto its nose. I believe that is what happened by the repair that I see in the book. Stay off the brakes. Do not touch the brakes during the rollout. Let the thing fly down. Keep the rudder moving gently. Get the stick back. Get that tail wheel pinned onto the ground, and don't touch the brakes until you actually reach the spot where you need to stop. At that point, you'll move your heels forward, gently start working the brakes together, and gently, they're so powerful. Like, this plane has Cleveland brakes. They're not like any other plane where you really got a heavy, even my Citabria required a lot more pedal pressure to get enough power, enough leverage. This does not need that. So you can gently get on the brakes. There are also brakes in the front. So maybe what happened was the guy in the front accidentally touched him. I don't know if there was anybody up there, but the bottom line is if anybody touches the brakes shortly before or after touchdown and pitch the nose over, you could really hurt yourself and hurt the airplane. So it had happened. It had been repaired by the factory with all new parts. So me as an operator, me as an owner, that did not concern me. And as I looked through history of all biplanes, there was not one I could find, especially if it was a really old one, like a 1935. And this airplane was only 10 years old when I bought it, but it had been repaired by the factory. I feel if they can build it, they can fix it and repair it to factory new condition again, and they're going to check and make sure they did it right. So that is the only thing that's happened to this airplane that I'm aware of that you should be aware of if you buy this particular airplane. But as you look through others, unless you buy a brand new one or buy one that's very new that someone didn't fly very often, you may find one that has never been had an incident. But I would prefer to for me, I got that one out of the way. So at least I knew that I had a plane that had already had that. And luckily, over the next 17 years, I never had an incident with that. So the only things that could cause an issue for you when you fly this thing, if you blow a tire, if you locked up a wheel and got the airplane to ground loop, which we never had that happen, stay off the brakes and you won't have that. Crosswinds. I wouldn't do any more than a 10 or 15 knot crosswind in this airplane on purpose. If the winds are getting strong and you're finding yourself fighting this thing, try to find another airport that you can go land into the wind. The enemy of the biplane is the big crosswind. So be careful of crosswinds. Don't fly it on really heavy windy days and you will never have a problem with this airplane. It's not that fun to fly in big winds in a biplane. It kind of you get beat up. It catches wind and flops around and it's difficult to taxi and all those things. So I don't recommend a lot of wind. Let's continue. I'll show you the rest of these shots. We're getting there, I promise. You can take a look at this thing, the Ham Standard. This is the 2B20, beautiful condition. It's overhauled, it matches the engine. It's perfectly balanced and the engine runs as nice as any radial I've ever flown. It's fantastic. Beautiful shot of it from behind there. There's its tail number and wow, it's beautiful. This kind of shows that's the cargo compartment behind the aft cockpit there. The rear windshield is glass. So you're really well protected back there in the back. The front windshield is a plexiglass because it needed to make a couple of bends there. It's tempered. It's got like a little coating on it as well. You can unbuckle that windshield in just a couple of minutes with a Phillips head screwdriver. You can take that thing off, fold it up, and it fits in the cargo compartment. And then it has a cover, like I was saying, a blue cover with metal ribs in it that make it help to hold its shape and cover up the front cockpit. It flies a little faster as a single seater. Plus, it looks really cool. I never configured it like that, but I do have that as well. Also, with the airplane, I have the tow bar. The tow bar is a giant spanning aluminum tow bar, which is really nice. It's not that heavy because it's made out of aluminum, and it hooks up to the main landing gear on the inboard side like a P-51 Mustang. So we hook it up from the front and it goes to like a tug. And I used a golf cart with it for years. You could hook it up to a small vehicle. You could hook it up to a real tug. Really nice to have that capability, and you need this tow bar. The tow bar was, I think, close to $1,000. I have that as well. You'll need it. If you buy this airplane, you're gonna need the tow bar to tow it in and out of the hangar easily, or you'll need two people to push from the end struts, the struts between the wings outboard. All right, so let's see here. Here is a little video. Little pan. Yeah, that's cool. Another little pan. Kind of a close-up shot there. The plane's in beautiful condition. It really is. There's a shot from the back. All right. There you go. I'm going to get to the shot where it's got a little walk around. Oh, here you go. Here's a cockpit view from over the right side looking in. You can see the burl wood panel, the attitude indicator in the center. Really cool setup. There's the G meter there in the lower right-hand corner. On the right-hand side is the transponder, which has ADS-B in it now, and KX155. You can see that there. On the left side, there you go. There's the left side. The Garmin 430, that is a new GMA, I believe it's a 345, the intercom, which also Bluetooths to your headphones, so you can actually listen to music while you fly. That's kind of a cool feature. When my last 1,000-mile flight, I was listening to tunes on my Spotify in the plane cross country. That is really, really cool. The gauge to the left of the panels there is the EGT and the cylinder head temperature. Keep that thing out of the yellow. So you just can adjust your rate of climb, power setting, and so on. Mixture as well to control the temperature, which is really easy to do in the Waco. The lower left is the carburetor temperature. Watch that. It is easy to develop carb ice sometimes on just the right temperature and humidity days. It's got a carburetor heat knob right below the Garmin 430 there. Up above the switches, those are the light switches mostly, is the oil temperature and oil pressure gauges. And then to the right of that, or to the left of the RPM gauge, you could see my chip detectors. That's from the ADC kit, which is fantastic. The manifold pressure gauge is below that. There's your airspeed indicator. You'll be doing 100 a lot. That's the speed it flies at, pretty much 100 miles per hour, about 80 knots or so is a really nice cruise speed. You can go faster. It just gets noisier. I prefer to fly slower. I really enjoy the low and slow. There's a nice wide shot of the cockpit. You can kind of see the throttle quadrant on the left side with the prop control, the mixture in the center, throttles outboard, really nice configuration there. Down low, the two red knobs are the fuel shutoffs, so you can balance fuel that way. And there's those powerful brakes on the floor and a stick grip. That's wood. I love it. And full leather. It's got a nice navy blue leather inside, front and rear, and blue leather on the sidewalls, which is nice. And kind of a nice blue. Navy blue carpet. There's another shot of it looking from the other direction. Yeah, that looks great. Beautiful. There we go. And closing up into the engine compartment. It's just hard to really see everything there, but you can see that engine's just shining away. This is the engine that's got a magnesium front and an aluminum rear, or vice versa, one or the other. Anyway, it's got the dual metals for lightening the engine core. I talked to Pete about it. He said, "Did you ever have any problem with the mixed metals?" And I said, "Absolutely not." He says, "That's the way I'd recommend it. It'll lighten your airplane. It flies fine. There's no reason to worry about it." And the other engine gave me no trouble at all. And I prefer this engine. So I asked him if it would be a good idea to switch to the dual aluminum halves to have similar metals. And he said it's not necessary. They've been making them this way for a really long time, and I recommended leaving it just the way it is. And no fuel injection. The fuel injection engine is actually slightly problematic. Not sure exactly why, but I think you're better off with the non-fuel injected 275 versus the fuel injected 300 horsepower. They told me that extra 25 horsepower is not really noticeable. You really can't tell. So stick with this motor. I think you'll be happy with it. There you go. You kind of look into it just a little bit better. You see those braided, look at these. It's tough to see. It's a slightly portrait shot, but those braided harnesses for the spark plugs, just beautiful. Just awesome workmanship. Playing another video here. There you go. There you go. And here comes a walk around. I think I walked it all the way around it for you. Okay. I just love the shape of it. The ailerons are metal. You can see that there. The flying wires are, of course, steel. The javelins that hold that route between the flying wires that holds everything nice and tight are wood with a nice little string attached to it to give it the nice vintage look. Unlike my pits, which didn't have the the bare wood look. So I think you'll appreciate the details on this airplane. Look at that. It's just wow. Beautiful. Love it. Here comes an engine start. I'm going to show you how it sounds when it starts. Here it comes. Just about ready to show you. Am I in there? Here we go. Let me turn on some lights for you. Probably get the landing lights on there, the nav lights. And then once you start it, so the way you start the Waco is with the propeller lever full aft. And you bring the mixture full rich, and then you slowly pump in with the manual plunger, like 7 to 10 times of just a little squirt of gas into the cylinders, and stow the plunger, crack the throttle, battery switch on, and there's a push button starter. Press the button to start, and after a couple of rotations on the propeller, one click to the right, and you'll get the distributor, and that will fire off the engine will light off, and then 2 clicks to the right, and you're on both. And that's how easy it is to start. Once it warms up a little bit, you bring the prop control forward and bring the propeller out of feather, and that opens up the piston and allows the propeller to come out of feather using the counterweights and oil pressure. It'll start to come out of feather, and the engine will purr smoothly, and then you taxi it with the mixture back just a little bit. When you're ready to shut down, the opposite. You pull that prop lever to full aft. The piston will come in, the counterweights will come in, and this thing will go into a feather, and it will siphon the rest of the oil out of the propeller hub back into the tank, so you'll have more oil in it for the next engine start, and it also protects the piston. That's the best way to protect the propeller and to protect the engine. So that's the proper procedure for the start and shutdown of the Waco. All right, so there you have it. Hopefully you've enjoyed this look at the Waco. I'm not going to talk about the price here. This is really a business opportunity. I'm also providing owner financing. I've owned the airplane. I've owned it for many years. I love this airplane. I will help you. If you want to learn about how to fly a Waco, how to become a better pilot, how to become a better tailwheel pilot, how to become an aerobatic pilot, how to become a biplane business owner, please call me. I will be happy to walk you through the process, and I want you to be successful in aviation. It has been my pleasure and my honor to have been in this business for as long as I have. Hopefully I can share with you a little bit of that knowledge as you get started into your biplane adventure. You've been watching Taking Flight with me. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you being here. My name is Mike Rocket Blackstone, and feel free to leave any messages down in the comment section. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and if you need to talk to me, you always can find me with Taking Flight with Rocket at gmail.com. Taking Flight with Rocket at gmail.com. You can email me anytime. Looking forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thanks for being here.